J. One of the hottest rappers in Jacksonville, Breezy grew up playing football, but after jumping off the porch, he left the field and began running through the trenches. Today, we'll break down how we took over the scene and became entangled in one of the bloodiest battles in the rap game. Jdot came up. Jay wasn't gangbanging in the past, but his family was constantly struggling to put food on the table, so he ended up becoming active at a young age before we got involved with the fighting amongst young people. Jay was raised by his mother in Jacksonville because his father was often in and out of jail. And Ace and Theo Jay had already been friends with many guys from both sides for a long time. In an interview with No Jumper, Jdot mentioned that he might have spun the bands when he was younger because many of the guys he knew were already doing stand-up. Nevertheless, Jay simply created his own lane in the streets and wasn't associated with any gams. He began carjacking while he was in school, and Jay mentioned that everyone else in the city at the time was doing the same thing, jacking whips, and many teenagers were turning up to parties in stolen vehicles that he had gotten away with. Jay had been rapping since he was about 11 years old, but after having to sit down on the inside, he started taking it more seriously. He was rapping for everyone who would listen to him, and as he talked, he eventually got charged with having stolen a whip and was put in jail. Before being imprisoned for carjacking his team's victory in a state championship, which is a huge accomplishment in Florida, Jay informed the police outside that he was going to become a rapper when he returned home. Jay also had a lot of ability to succeed in football. Had a foot in the streets, he was immediately charged with a gun, got locked up again, and before he was allowed inside, Jacksonville was violent, though not nearly as violent as it is now. There was definitely drama on the streets back then, but guys used to settle disputes by fighting rather than by shooting. Every time they saw Jay, he was chill with guys from both sides before he was arrested for a gun charge. However, while he was in jail, everything changed. There are many conflicting theories about how the war in Jacksonville began, but this is the story that Fulio's cousin Z on Brown is said to have told. DeAndre Thomas, who was shot and killed, was connected to both Ace and Young. The two even got involved in a case together in 2018 where Ace was accused of robbing the plug and firing shots at him. Ace worked on the case, but that same year, Thomas was also involved in the shooting that really started the war. Ace went to dinner with his brother and two friends to celebrate one of their birthdays was planned that night. Normally, they wouldn't be out in public like that, but they just wanted to relax and enjoy a nice meal at a steakhouse. Everything went smoothly at first, but as they were about to leave the establishment, the shooter pulled up and began firing shots at Ace's brother. Body counts have been dropping on both sides ever since another Jacksonville rapper named Boss Goon was shot and killed shortly after he was released from prison in 2019. Boss Goon wasn't just another street dude, though he was the one who survived after taking 8 bullets that night, which changed Jacksonville forever. Less than a month later, Fulio's little brother and his homie were hanging out outside of Ace's crib when a shooter approached and began firing at them. The baby tried to flee. Ace's older brother, K, is said to be one of the most savage shooters in the city. Although he managed to get away, he fell to the ground, and at that moment, the shooter took aim at him and shot him in the back of the head. Although he wasn't charged right away, he began firing shots at BBY on tracks like Queso where he was, and as you may know, we smoke little BBY. Queso Block and Rugers, we're hitting and slipping, and we're chasing you down. We're blissing and blitzing, and we're not bib out. We're hitting and taking a few shots before going out again in January 2020, when Queso is said to have killed a rapper named Lil Buck at a Jacksonville shopping center. Jay had been friends with Queso for years, but he was also close to guys on the opposite side. It wasn't a problem back then, but when the war broke out, he had to choose a side. After returning home from the gun charge, Jay was prepared to devote all of his attention to football and rap. His first song on YouTube, which received over 400,000 views while he was still wearing an ankle monitor. He informed his football coaches that he was over the street drama, but living in a city like Jacksonville makes things difficult, and, according to Jdot, both sides were pressuring him. Jdot wanted to play football and make music, but the ops wouldn't let that happen. Dude started showing up at his school and sending threats, which is how Jdot got entangled in all the drama one day. After that, the situation got serious and changed Jdot's life forever. Jdot was watching a football film with the team when he received a call to the office from the principal informing him that threats were being made against him. The principal had shown up with a gun, acting as though they were going to arrest him when he left the school. Jay did as he was instructed to and merely lazed around for a month before getting the word that he could return to school, but on his first day back, the principal informed him that his presence at the school would endanger other children as well. The principal stated that Jdot had missed too many days, and that's when he left school behind and went all in with the rap gang, even though they were the ones who ordered him to stay at home. The dean told him he wasn't meant to be there and brought him back to the principal's office. Wanted to become legal and obtain a regular job, but Jay informed him that it was not possible since there was too much drama on the streets. Jdot then began to lose friends in the trenches back in 2019 when his cousin R was a child in Ace and some other friends at a Hampton Inn when the police ambushed them and began firing shots. They pursued him through the hotel's parking lot, where R was tragically hit in the body and later declared dead. There are rumors that a man by the name of Tiki was involved in the hit, but Tiki ended up dying soon after. After R was on the track without naming him, Jay is said to have made fun of him and rapped him, saying that he smoked a pack of cigarettes before winged up and dug him up, saying that killed 762 to hit his pals when they were young. On his viral diss track, ACE also made fun of Tiki, saying, "I smoke Filio" when he raps who I smoke. The scenario is even more bizarre because Jay got wasted on an Instagram live and began disparaging Tiki. He even claimed, "I was on that hit in glass. I'm drunk. I smoke ass dead ass and I was on that H Jada started." In 2019, he began to release music seriously, and soon after, he gained popularity and hundreds of thousands of views. However, at the same time, the war in Jacksonville was becoming more and more intense, and in 2020, he experienced yet another significant setback. Leaky was another guy from the east side of Jacksonville, who was a part of the group 1200, and Jada had been friends since they were young. However, most of them had been expelled from school, so in the past they would just hang out at each other's houses. However, there were rumors that Levy was one of the city's most active guys. Even allegedly tried to take out Fulio's girlfriend, Boobin Baby, back in 2020. Boobin was driving Fulio's car to the gas station with her friend when a shooter rolled up and started letting off shots. Whoever pulled the trigger probably wanted to kill Fio, but Boobin ended up getting hit 3 times, and one of the shots actually took her. "I don't smoke." Kendra and said this, "Mama got shot, and he's still tweaking this. I know she was leaving, they shot that whole finger off." Rumors say Leakey was behind the shooting. If you told me to spin the band WS about the situation on the track. On May 3, 2020, while Petey was hanging out on the street with some others, a guy allegedly jumped out of his whip and fired rounds into the crowd. Everyone was hit, but Petey was the only one who didn't pull out, barely 1 month after he was accused of shooting Ben Lou. Leakey wasn't even involved in the streets until after seeing his friend's murder in front of him in 2019, when he and a guy named John were hanging around on the 1200 block of Clark Street when a shooter and a white van pulled up on him. According to the claims, Leakey eventually passed away from his wounds and began firing shots. Leakey was struck multiple times and taken to the hospital, but John was struck in the head and tragically died there. The op began making fun of Leakey for losing his friend, and the rapper Jump Out Squeeze released a song titled Op and wrapped up, "I'll begin this by." He also took digs at Jade, with the phrase "will tell." When he got nabbed, Jdot told and switched his block to the genuine NHG, "We will remove your top." Rumor has it that Jdot submitted a statement to the police back. "Boy, I'm smoking drums, all this flagging man needs to knock it off." When Filio shared a document on Twitter when he was still a high school football player, many people began to despise Jay for the circumstances. However, Jay admitted that he wasn't particularly involved in the streets at the time, and on the track, he rapped "Tell." I was a minor ball player and follower just like what I was. My image wasn't any gangster I hit. The truth about me is that I stand on business, never faking ask around, bang this and crash out without hesitation. You want me to respond to your flocking and your ass hating. I said something in self-defense. The streets in 2019, and I have proof. Go look at the data. It's unclear how involved Jdot was in the streets, but his friends were undoubtedly sliding on the ops 10 days after they jumped out. It was around 2 in the afternoon when Jay and Link's friend John were waiting outside an Amazon warehouse to apply for a job. PM. At a busy location, but it didn't stop 2 gunmen from arriving and taking over the mountain in broad daylight, according to rumors. Leaky was one of the guys who pulled the trigger on the jump out. He was supposedly applying extreme pressure to the opposing side, but it all caught up with him in September 2020. At the intersection of Monument Road and Atlantic Boulevard, Leaky Spin the Bands and a few other murderers were sitting in a whip when another car drove by and opened fire. Leaky was struck again and taken to the hospital, but this time he didn't survive and was declared dead 3 days later. One of Filio's most despised ops began firing bullets at him on the tracks, saying things like all gas, Leaky, rest in peace, and 100K, he'll shake the room, sweep his block, we don't need a broom. They also asked me how high I was driving. I'm Leaky, high, and I'm to the moon. Leaky was rumored to have terrorized the ops in Jacksonville, and after his passing, Spin and B released the song by themselves. I feel like this isn't the place for everyone, and I kill. I swear, these leaks aren't for anybody. Statement, but they failed to disclose that Fio detested Lick to the point where he had personalized cannabis packs printed with Lick's face on them. When he teamed up with Lil Uzi Verse artist Vlad Cash Desto, she joined in on the distance and remarked, I'm a Fio, he got me. Smoking on Leaky Desto wasn't even from Jacksonville. She was shot and killed in Houston, and Jay took to Instagram to mock her. Since most people weren't aware of the circumstances surrounding her death, Jay's social media clowning resulted in him receiving a I don't know why everyone is mad. There's no point in being mad. Y'all ain't giving a when she hopped on this. Jdot said in his interview with No Jumper that everyone was cool with Dlee mentioning his dead homie, so he didn't understand why fans weren't keeping that same energy. You guys supported her when she said she was smoking my partner, so now the same person, the deceased person she was smoking, spoke up and said she died, and now that we've spoken about her, you guys are crazy. Come on, you know how the stray go, stop playing, but he later acknowledged that he might have. After bodies began to appear in Jacksonville, Jay ended up leaving the state for a while, and his friends didn't even want him to return because they knew he had an even bigger target on his back. However, I could have handled it differently and been the bigger person. He listened to them and left for a bit, but since he was becoming well known in the rap game, he could have easily become the next Jdot. At that point, he really started stepping it up in the booth, spending every day in the studio honing his craft and when Jdot started to gain notoriety outside of Jacksonville, he realized how far he could go in the rap game if he avoided all the street drama. He declared that he would keep pushing until he was able to take care of everyone. Jdot completed the entire album, The Creation, while he was away from the city. When Jay's name began to become well known, many guys began referring to him as J because they thought that winning the state championship meant he wasn't really interested in that life. However, Jay claims that these people were just mocking him because he actually accomplished something. Jay also talks about how he's a role model for young people and doesn't want them to think playing sports and staying off the streets is lame. Jay even moved out of Jacksonville entirely, but he claimed that wasn't the reason behind it. Rather, it was the police officers who are constantly attempting to hold people up, and he doesn't want to allow them to slow down his career. Jay may be attempting to avoid the drama in Jacksonville, but that hasn't stopped him from constantly battling with Fio. Fio is constantly leaking information, and Jay always gets back on track like a pro when he does. I drive up on the 6 because my Glock has a dick, but I'll leap out with the Drake and run him down and take a piss at how you rap out gangster, but you ain't never done a hit. He says he smokes our dude totally a On the same tune, I also took shots at BBY, saying, BBY, in my blunt, I might attempt to combine dank and turn into some runs. Hop out on a block, and I made his ass run how you smoking on my dog and your corpse count ain't one. R died with the fan. Well, baby died with his. Gun Fulio has already escaped multiple gunfights during the war in Jacksonville in 2020. He was in Houston when the ops caught him in traffic and threw a clip into his car. He managed to escape after hitting Graz in the neck, but Jdot Homie Fast Money Goon essentially proved ER was responsible for the incident on the track. Who I smoke with when he WS, I told the Rocket. I was sneaking around his page and saw him lacking when I traveled to Houston, where we let off bullets. He got shot in Wendley, and I was tweaking like, this man ain't died. Then one day he was leaving the Jacksonville studio. Fulio was attacked by 2 shooters and had to return fire. Despite being shot over 100 times, he managed to escape and only sustain a minor leg wound. In October 2023, he was apprehended once more, and his mother asked followers to follow him on Instagram to offer prayers for him. Although it first appeared that Fulio might not live, it turns out that he only suffered a serious wound to the foot and will fully recover. Jay doesn't appear to have been involved in the shooting, but that didn't stop him from going online and performing some clowning. Jay claimed that losing individuals to violence on a regular basis is upsetting, and he told No Jumper that he used to mess him up. Fulio and Jade have both lost so many people to the conflict that they'll probably never stop fighting. Fortunately, it appears that Jay is really focused on moving past the street beef and succeeding in the music industry. He has already moved out of Jacksonville to states where there isn't such a huge target on his back, so hopefully he keeps pushing and staying focused. Regarding his career,